All right, so you want to know about milling machine operators, huh? Well, buckle up because we're going deep on this one.
We've got a ton of info from RoleCatcher, and it's not just the usual career stuff.
Oh no, we're talking interview tricks, AI and hiring, the whole 9 yards.
Mm.
They really cover it all.
It really shows you how much things are changing out there.
Right. You can be the best at running a milling machine, but if your application doesn't even reach a human.
Exactly. It's a whole different ballgame now.
Okay, but before we get too far ahead, let's start with the basics. What does a milling machine operator actually do?
Think of it like this. They take metal and shape it with incredible precision.
Okay, so we're not talking about your average metal shop class project here.
Not at all. These are the folks making the parts that go into everything, like medical devices or even spaceships.
Wow, talk about high stakes. So it's precision work that's in high demand across a bunch of industries.
Definitely. Manufacturing, metalworking, you name it.
Yes.
And the need for these skills, especially with all the new tech, it's only going up.
Makes sense, especially with automation taking over the simpler stuff. So
Yeah.
having these specific milling skills is a pretty good bet for the future.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. What are the pros and cons? What's the good, the bad, and the really rewarding stuff about this career?
Well, like any job, it has its ups and downs.
For sure. RoleCatcher mentions good pay and job stability, which is always nice to hear.
Definitely a plus.
Plus, they talk about how hands-on it is and the variety of things you might be doing. Perfect if you don't want to be stuck behind a desk all day.
It's very hands-on, very tangible. You're building real things, and that appeals to a lot of people.
Totally. But it's not all sunshine and roses, right?
Right.
RoleCatcher also mentions it can be physically demanding, can be noisy, and some of the work can get a bit repetitive.
That's definitely something to consider. You got to be ready to be on your feet and deal with some noise. But, for the right person, someone who really enjoys mastering a skill, someone who takes pride in being precise, it can be incredibly rewarding.
It's finding that balance, right? The challenge and the reward. And speaking of rewards, RoleCatcher lists opportunity for advancement as a big pro. What does that look like for a milling machine operator? Where can they go in their career?
Now, that's where it gets interesting. It's not a dead-end job at all. A lot of operators move into CNC programming.
CNC programming, okay.
That's where you're basically using software to tell the milling machine what to do. It opens up a lot more possibilities for complex and creative work.
So instead of just running the machine, you're designing the instructions for it. Very cool.
Exactly. And that's just one path. RoleCatcher also talks about people moving into supervisor roles or even transitioning into engineering positions later on.
Wow. So starting as an operator can really be a springboard.
It can be. You're gaining skills and experience that are valuable across those entire industries.
So there's definitely room to grow in this field. But let's say someone's listening and thinking, okay, this sounds awesome, but how do I actually get started? What are the entry points that RoleCatcher talks about?
Well, they lay out a couple of main paths you can take. One is the apprenticeship route.
Okay, apprenticeship.
Yeah, so you're learning on the job, getting that hands-on experience, which is really valuable. And, you're getting paid while you learn.
That's always a plus.
Totally. The other main route is going through a more formal education program.
Gotcha. So like vocational schools, technical schools, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Those types of programs give you a really structured curriculum covering both the theory and the practical skills you need for machining.
That makes sense. Now, I also noticed they mentioned online courses. Is that a legitimate way to learn this stuff?
It definitely can be. I mean, online learning has exploded, right? There are some really good resources out there for learning the basics of milling and machining.
Right.
The key is to find programs that actually give you some hands-on experience, exercises, projects, things that go beyond just watching videos.
Totally. You want to be able to apply what you're learning, not just understand it in theory.
Exactly. And, beyond the initial training, RoleCatcher stresses how important continuous learning is in this field.
Okay, so like always staying updated.
Yeah. Joining professional organizations, going to industry events, keeping up with new technologies, all of that can really give you an edge.
Because this isn't the kind of field where you just learn it once and you're good to go.
Right. Things are always evolving. And speaking of evolving, RoleCatcher had this whole section on AI and how it's changing hiring, even for milling machine operators.
Oh, wow. AI's everywhere these days. So how does that work?
It's pretty wild, actually. A lot of companies are using AI to scan and filter resumes now.
So before a human even sees your application?
It's going through an algorithm.
Wow. That's both impressive and a little scary, to be honest.
I get it. But the thing is, if you understand how these systems work, you can use it to your advantage.
That's RoleCatcher's whole thing, right? They give you strategies for dealing with all this.
Exactly. Like how to tailor your resume and online profiles to get noticed by the AI.
So it's almost like you need to know how to market yourself to a computer now.
In a way, yeah. You have to use the right keywords, highlight the skills the AI is looking for, structure your experience in a way that makes sense to their programming.
Wow. It's like a whole other level of job hunting. But hey, that's what we're here for, right? To give people the inside scoop.
That's right. And this whole AI thing just shows you how technology is changing everything, even how we find jobs.
Totally. It's not just about knowing how to operate a machine anymore. It's about navigating all this tech around it.
Absolutely. And speaking of skills, there's another aspect RoleCatcher highlights that I found really interesting. Transferable skills.
Oh, yeah. The skills you pick up that can apply to other jobs, even outside of machining.
Exactly. Even though it seems like a specialized field, a lot of the skills you learn as a milling machine operator are valuable in all sorts of areas.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, you develop incredible precision, attention to detail, you get really good at solving problems on the fly, you learn how to work with complex machinery, how to understand technical drawings.
Right.
All of that translates to really strong mechanical skills and spatial reasoning, which are useful in so many different fields.
It's like you're not just learning a job, you're learning how to think in a different way.
Yeah.
So even if someone decides that, actually running a milling machine isn't for them, this deep dive has given them some good stuff to think about.
For sure.
But here's the thing. We've talked about how tech is already changing the game. AI in hiring, these super advanced machines. What do you think, where is this all headed? What's the future for milling machine operators?
That's the big question, right? Like, technology is moving so fast. I think the name of the game is going to be lifelong learning.
Makes sense.
You got to be ready to adapt to new tools, new ways of doing things. It's not enough to just learn one thing and stick with it.
So the skills of the future are as much about being adaptable as they are about, mastering a specific machine.
Exactly. I think we'll see more and more need for operators who can not only run the machines, but program them, troubleshoot them. Like, think about where AI and machine operation intersect. That's where it gets really interesting.
So not just understanding how to use the machine, but almost how it thinks. That's kind of wild.
It is. And it just goes to show this field, it might seem niche, but it's really at the cutting edge of all this new tech. The folks who can keep learning, keep up with the changes, they're going to be the ones shaping the future of how things are made.
That's pretty cool when you think about it. So we've covered a lot of ground from what a milling machine operator actually does to how to get started to how tech is changing everything.
Yeah, it's a fascinating field.
But maybe even more important, we've uncovered all these transferable skills, the kind of problem solving and adaptability that can take you anywhere. So no matter what path you're on, keep that in mind. Who knows? Maybe you'll be the one programming those AI-powered milling machines in the future.
The possibilities are really endless, especially if you're curious and eager to learn new things.
Couldn't agree more. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us. Keep those questions coming, keep exploring, and we'll catch you on the next one.